For the Board of Commissioners, just to give you an idea of the chain of events. On Friday, July 13th, Jimmy Whitley was dismissed from employment under the probationary provisions that did not require cause for dismissal. He has filed an appeal on August the 6th stating the reasons for his dismissal regarding poor work performance and several instances of poor judgment that were not sufficient cause for dismissal. And this is in your packet as presented by Greg Wood. So at this time, we're going to let Jimmy come and state his case to the Board of Commissioners.
Mr. Whitley.
I'm Jimmy Whitley. Nice to meet y'all.
Nice to meet you.
First let me say this situation is not about me getting my job back, as it was evidently perceived, or about a probationary period. It's about standing up for what's right. This was handled wrong, and there's no evidence of a poor job performance or bad decisions. 7/13/12, Kelly came to my house and fired me without giving a reason. She asked, was I upset with her? I said no, I'm stunned, you know. I called Greg Wood to find out why I was fired. He advised me I wasn't fired, I was terminated, and further stated the reasons of poor work performance and bad decisions. My mother called Greg to find out what happened. He stated to her same reasons. She advised him being fired and terminated was the same thing. She asked about poor work performance when the Animal Control Committee has raved about a great job performance, and Kelly calling a few days prior to me being fired and told me I was doing a good job. I thought that was kind of odd myself, but Mom then asked about the bad decisions. Mr. Wood stated that he, talking about as JR, shouldn't have ever let Miss Har in the door. Mom told him she felt this was unjust as she felt that was being blamed on me. Mr. Wood stated, well, he shouldn't have allowed her, Miss Har, in the building. It was not during business hours. Mom questions Mr. Wood on how I was fired by Kelly coming to our home. Mr. Wood's reply was, well, she needs some work on her management skills. Same thing happened with Miss Harrison and Christy. Mr. Wood said that was during business hours. 7/14/12, Mom and I were talking about the situation, and she explained to me I could let things go and mark it up as a lesson learned, or I could fight for what I believe was right. 7/16/12, I then went to Miss Sharon's office and explained to her my request of a copy of my personnel file, request for an appeal for termination, and a request for a hearing with the BOC. Miss Sharon said the request had to be in writing. I went back home, wrote up the request, then was on my way to make copies when my mother called and said she was coming to get me, and we were going to Mr. Greg Wood's office. Mom said Mr. Wood called her and left a message on her phone that stated he had just found out about the events of how Kelly fired me, and that he did have a problem with it. Mr. Wood also advised he needed to talk to her about some other things that had to do with the situation. He asked Mom to call him back. Mom does have this message saved on her phone, by the way. Mom and I then went to Mr. Wood's office. Mr. Wood requested to speak to Mom alone. I went outside and the door was shut. After a few minutes, the door was reopened and I went back in. During this discussion, after I went back in, was poor job performance. There's no documentation, there's no documentation and great reviews from Animal Control Committee and Kelly. Mr. Wood has informed me that the documentation could also be in the form of emails and things like that. Mr. Wood was asked, has he received any emails at all about me having a poor job performance? He said no. Change of heart, another thing that was discussed. Mom asked Mr. Wood why he was suddenly concerned about the events of how I was fired, considering when she talked to him on Friday, he didn't seem concerned at all, while stating, well, she needs some work in her management skills. He said it was because of the issue he discussed with her when the door was closed. Another thing that was discussed in this time that I was in there was bad decisions. Mom and I asked about the bad decisions. Mr. Wood stated I shouldn't have allowed Miss Har I shouldn't have allowed Miss Starr into the building, and further stated, I wished they would have locked her up. The woman is crazy. Mr. Wood also stated when I was bitten by the dog was a bad decision, which was included in reason for termination. The incident report states I was working within the line of duty, and it indicates the incident was not a result of negligence. And y'all can check my personnel file and y'all have that confirmed. Another thing that was discussed was SOPs. Mr. Wood was asked if there were any protocols for animal control. He asked if she meant SOPs. Mom said yes. Mr. Wood advised there are SOPs for animal control. Mom asked where they were, and Mr. Wood said they're written down. Mr. Wood was asked, did I receive a copy of this when I was hired? Mr. Wood stated no. Mom asked, how can you say he's doing anything wrong when he hasn't been shown or told different? I didn't know I wasn't supposed to let anyone in the building. In fact, I was thinking, with all the things people were saying about animal control, they should be allowed to come in and see the animals are being cared for and the cages are cleaned. It was explained to Mr. Wood that I believe my termination was result of someone needing to be blamed for the situation with Miss Hart, and that I was the one that was being blamed. Mr. Wood judged my Christianity by stating, I thought when you stood up in church and gave your testimony, you were trying to change. But I asked Mr. Wood, what does my Christianity have to do with this? Mr. Wood advised me of my background check and stated it was looked over because of my testimony in church. Mr. Wood advised he would look into the situation to see if this could find some good things to put in my file is what I mean. I asked Mr. Wood, how could he put good things in my mother asked Mr. Wood, how could he put good things in my file when he stated earlier he only hears bad things? Mr. Wood advised me he was helping me due to the conversation that happened before I was brought in that involved a bad decision, stating that I was being scrutinized by members outside of the animal control. Mr. Wood was asked what he meant. His reply was like the Board of Commissioners asking who is this JR guy. The bottom line, I believe I was terminated as a result of an issue that happened with Ms. R, me catching the fall. As I said, this is about standing up for what's right. I would like to request you do your own investigation. Talk with Christy and Megan to see what they say about my performance. Talk to the Animal Control Committee. This was handled wrong, and Mr. Wood does agree that there is a lot of gray areas here. The decision to ensure this doesn't happen to anyone else is up to you, Board of Commissioners. And how you deal with the information I gave you, I hope you make the right decision to ensure this doesn't happen to anyone else.
Mr. Whitley, you did a very good job.